Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So here's another deck profile update for you guys today. This time it's on Lair of Darkness. So as y'all know, Lair of Darkness is the deck that kind of got me this far. It's become like one of my personal favorite decks, and it's one that I usually just put on shelf from time to time simply because this is kind of like my wild card deck, if you want to say it that way. But the deck's a lot of fun. It's really annoying to deal with simply because of the fact that this deck takes advantage of tributing monsters to activate the effects. And keep in mind, tributing is usually always going to be cost, so it's a good way to out like certain things like Dragoon. Believe it or not, this deck actually can easily out Dragoon in more ways than one. Funny enough, I do actually play Dragoon in this deck. Yes, I know. Like, am I putting Dragoon in almost every deck now? I mean, like I said, you might as well at this point, since Dragoon never got hit in the ban list. Might as well just play it at its fullest, right? So, but also Dragoon is not generally this deck's win condition. The whole win condition is usually just out-resourcing your opponent using the effects of your trap cards, using Lilith just to keep treating your opponent's monsters over and over again. And there's just a lot of cool spice in this deck now, so I decided to completely change the formula of this deck to best suit, well, basically just to help deal with the format, basically. Like, Eldlich also did not get touched at all on the ban list, so that's still going to be a problem. We still have to deal with Drytron. But luckily enough, Lair of Darkness turns everything on the board into dark monsters, so tributing them will be easier than you might think. So anyway, let's go and get started. All right, so starting off with the main deck, it's 40 cards. Playing 3 copies of the Heart and Soul Lilith. Lilith, Lady of Lament. Once per turn, quick effect. You contribute 1 dark monster, reveal 3 trap cards from your deck, and your opponent has to randomly choose one to set to the field. So that's actually a good way to get access to all your trap cards. Of course, if it's normal summon, his attack points get cut in half, but if you bring it back with a card like, I don't know, back to the front, it becomes a full 10,000 points. Yeah, it helps to be in defense mode first, but does that really matter? No. And not to mention, Tour Guide also gets you instant access to this card. Now, its effects will be negated, but funny enough about Lilith, if Lilith is summoned off the ability of Tour Guide, you are still allowed to tribute for cost, even though it will not resolve. So, yeah, Lilith is really broken. Next, 3 copies of Arima. So this is basically how you get access to your Lair of Darkness a little faster. You discard a search Lair of Darkness, but it also has a pretty neat effect. Once per turn, you can tribute 1 dark monster, draw a card, or if you tribute a dark monster other than itself, you can actually search any dark monster from your deck with 2,000 or more defense. So this is how you get access to Darkest Diabolus. Next up, 1 copy of Malice. Some people don't like this card, but I actually do like what it can do. So quick effect, you contribute 2 monsters, and that's the part that people don't tend to like, the fact that it requires 2 tributes. But you can tribute 1 of your own monsters, in which case you probably tribute a token or something, as well as 1 of your opponent's monsters for cost. Then target 1 normal trap that is banished or in your graveyard, set that target, but place it on place it on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. So it's a good way to recycle some of your trap cards. And the fact that it goes back to your deck when it leaves instead of going to the graveyard, that's actually pretty nice when you really think about it. And of course, it's also a level 3 Fiend type monster, so Skarm can search it out. Turgai can also bring this out, so yeah, there's just no reason not to run it. Of course, the boss monster, Darkest Diabolus himself, cannot be targeted or kaiju'd, so that's really nice. And it's also good to rip a card out of your opponent's hand, so you contribute a dark monster. Your opponent gets to choose the card, of course, to whether put it on the top or the bottom of the deck. And what's also nice about Darkest Diabolus is that he summons himself literally for free, so long as long as you tribute a dark monster you control. So, yeah, Darkest Diabolus can special summon himself from hand or grave, by the way. Next, I'm playing 3 copies of Tour Guide. Yeah, you know, people say like this card can easily get ashed, Siphon Gear Gamma, Imperm, Effect Veilered, but does that really matter? No, like Tour Guide is just kind of like a bait, because like the fact that I'm running a card like Dragoon, if I open up with if I have another way just to bring out another body to the field, I can just simply go into Verite Anaconda that way and just send Red Ice Fusion off of that. But overall, yeah, Tour Guide is kind of like a 1-card Dragoon. Basically, you can special summon Skarm, Lilith, Malice, and again, you don't even have to go into Dragoon. You could just simply like set up the field with some trap cards and just go from there. So yeah, there's like so many things you can actually do with this deck. And of course, 1 copy of Skarm. If it's sent to the grave, you can search out a level 3 Fiend-type monster during the end phase. So again, instant access to your Lilith. I was going to run Sandgen, but I decided not to since I just didn't have the room for it. So Skarm should be just enough, really. And of course, again, running the Dragoon package, 1 Dark Magician, 1 Red Ice Black Dragon, Red Ice Fusion, and of course, just as a precaution, I'm running 1 copy of Magical Ice Fusion. So if I have my vanillas already in the grave, and I still happen to have a second copy of Dragoon in my extra deck, I can just play Magicalized Fusion, just banish the materials, and bring out my Red Ice Dark Dragoon that way too. So yeah, pretty busted package. You know, everyone's gonna start, especially a lot of rogue decks right now, they're gonna take full advantage of this. All right, now moving on to spells. 3 copies of Lair of Darkness. You know, like I said, turns everything into darks. You can tribute one of your opponent's monsters for costs in place of one of your own once per turn. And during the end phase, depending on whose turn it is, you have to special summon tokens equal to the number of monsters you tributed that turn. And keep in mind, this is a mandatory end phase effect, so there's no option. So like if it's your turn, you get the tokens. If it's your opponent's turn, they get the tokens. One Terraformer just to search it out. So technically you're playing, well, I guess 5 copies of Arima simply because you also run Metaverse. So that way Lair of Darkness is always accessible. 3 Pot of Extravagance. If they're I would rather play Pot of Prosperity, but Extravagance is just as good because at least with Pot of Prosperity, you get to choose your poison, and with Extravagance, it's just like it's at pure random. So you have to like be careful not to banish all your best monsters. But again, like if I can get my hands on Pot of Prosperity, I'll run that over Extravagance. For right now, Extravagance is my best bet. So yeah, it is what it is. 3 Super Poly, like I said, the whole field becomes dark while Lair is on the field, and you can just simply make Starving Venom, the Predator Plant Trifeoviridium, and so on. All right, so moving on to traps already. 3 copies of Back to the Front. It's a monster reborn in trap form, but the monster has to come back in defense mode. 3 compulsory. So since, you know, Dragoon is still going to run rampant this format, you do not want it to come out. So like if your opponent brings out Verity Anaconda, get rid of it. And that's also just a good way to get rid of like certain monsters to keep them from extending. So yeah, compulsory, definitely an amazing card. 2 copies of Dogmatic of Punishment. Yes, I'm finally running it. I am running some targets for it, so it's just a good way to clear out boards. And if you send Entes, you get an additional pop. So Dogmatic of Punishment, you know, you send 1 monster with an equal or higher attack from your extra deck to the graveyard. And if you do, destroy a monster that your opponent controls. It does target, so just bear that in mind. Until the end of your next turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck. So that's why, like I say, Dragoon is not like my primary win condition. There are multiple ways you can win the duel. You can just simply do a beatdown strategy just by, you know, tributing your opponent's monsters to just generate more advantage. And yeah, Dogmatic of Punishment can put in a lot of work. Running Torrential Tribute just to clear out boards in case if I don't have a good start. This is a good way just to protect myself and last an additional turn. I'm also running Lost Wind. Lost Wind is so good right now. I was going to run Impermanence, but I decided to go Lost Wind right now because, again, Eldlich did not get touched. And if they bring out the Golden Lord, you can target it and cut its attack points in half and negate its effects until it leaves the field again. So, like, it's permanent while it stays on the field. So, and also, what's also cool about Lost Wind is that it recycles itself. So, that's one of the things about it. And if your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck while this card is in your graveyard, you can reset it. But of course, it gets banished. But thanks to Malice, you can essentially just recycle it anyway. So Lost Wind never stays gone for good. Just 1 copy of Trap Trick. I was going to go 3, but it just felt like too many copies. And plus, Trap Trick has a restriction where you can only activate 1 trap card for the duration of the turn after this resolves. So yeah, I think 1 is just fine. And of course, 1 copy of Metaverse just to get access to Lair of Darkness. All right, so that's pretty much it for the main deck. Now moving on to the extra deck. I'm running a lot of 2-ofs, so 2 copies of Beat Cop, you know, that's pretty self-explanatory. 2 Predator Plant Verity Anaconda. 1 copy of 5-Headed Link Dragon. Now, I got this idea from my friend Manuel simply because it outs so many cards right now. Like, if you use Dogmatic of Punishment, send this off, you can out cards like Mega Clop, since I know Zoo probably plays that right now, so yeah, 5-Headed Link Dragon is actually not a bad option to consider. So, like, yeah, since Mega Clops has a huge body, this thing's just bigger in that regard. So, yeah, just get rid of it. 2 copies of Stardust Dragon. You'll see why I'm running this momentarily. White Side Frame Lord Omega, you know, just for recursion. And plus, you can send this off of Dogmatic of Punishment. And also combats Dogmatic entirely. So, like, if your opponent plays Maximus, they activate the effects, and so you have to send cards yourself too. You can send 1 of these and an Entes and just kind of like punish them for it. So basically the idea is just to punish Dogmatica players. For the fusions, 2 copies of Entes, as I mentioned. You know, if it's sent to the grave, you get to pop a card. For my Super Poly targets, I'm playing 2 copies of Starving Venom. And as I mentioned, Trifeoviridium. So Trifeoviridium is pretty busted actually. So the fact that he can negate summons is definitely not too bad. And of course, 2 copies of Dragoon. Again, I'm running pot of extravagance, so I'm trying to like minimize the chances of losing it. I would run a third, but unfortunately extra deck space is kind of tight, so I only had room for just 2 for right now. So I mean, maybe I'll cut something for a third Dragoon, but until like I get my prosperities, I think this is fine. So yeah, 2 Dragoon. You can get away with just 1, honestly, if you do happen to have prosperities. All right, so moving on here. Playing 3 for the side deck, I mean, I'm playing 3 copies of Psychic Eraser Laser. It's another good card that outs Dragoon. Yeah, your opponent would get life points, but at the same time, does that really matter? No, the idea is to try to bait the negate off the Dragoon in case you don't have anything else to like, well, in case you have something else in mind, like you could just tribute it off for cost, or you could just, or if you need to get a play starter, like you want to bait out like your own Red Ice Fusion, or bait them out to activate your own Red Ice Fusion, that's a good way to do it too. So Psychic Eraser Laser, it's definitely not a bad option. So yeah, Called by the Grave, you know, just to deal with hand traps. I'm also running Pinkertops as a good going second card, so the fact that it's got a huge body, can run over just about anything, and tribute itself to pop a card, yeah, Pinkertops can put in some work. I wish it wasn't at 1, but it is what it is. For other extra deck monsters, I'm sending out Last Warrior from Another Planet, Ultimate Falcon, and of course the Steam Train. The idea is just to bring these out with the Waking the Dragon card, which comes to our next card, Waking the Dragon. It's just another way to combat cards like Harpy's Feather Duster, so you generally want to kind of be at the ready. Another good card that combats Harpy's Feather Duster, Starlight Road, or Twin Twisters too, if you want to go that route too. But Starlight Road is how I bring out Stardust Dragon. When a card or effect that activates can destroy 2 of my cards, 2 or more of my cards, I can negate the activation, and if I do, special summon Stardust Dragon from my extra deck. So that's the whole reason why I'm running Stardust. And last but not least, 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster in case I'm up against another back row heavy strategy. Heavy Storm Duster can definitely help me out in that regard. All right, so anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will catch you guys again next time.